Maranando Yamlen Girimba, that gave which Chiri Chonsum Gilam Yamlen Girimba, Sonjibik, Lamrim, Jing, Ma, she had the letter on the cuisine. That Chen Yembi Tsu said, on then Dinma, kissing to Shivere, it's not a Yembi Tsu, the kissing Garish, Son Shivarella, and Chen Yen, Delia, and Chen, Che Mawala, and Devada. Guba Chibitone, Ninyango Gures, Dinigi Delia, and Chichim, Chelia, and Devatan, Guba Ched, and Che Mo Badina, Uchiki Rangi, Givi Shinye, Che Yamne Batting and Delia, Saji Gungere, Sambigitone, Dushishi, Chabitone, and Ninyango Gures, at kissing on the Digor, Tishivare.
Good evening. So we're continuing to look at the introductory paragraphs to the Middle Lamrim, which presents the graduated stages to train one's mind, those which are shared with practitioners of initial capacity, those which are shared with practitioners of intermediate capacity, and those trainings which are unique to practitioners of great capacity. So in the preliminary teachings, we came last time to the chapter on how to listen to the Dharma. And here we look at, last time we looked at contemplating the benefits of listening to the Dharma, and we are in the second outline of developing respect for the Dharma and those who teach the Dharma. And we concluded with a point last week in the printed book at the top of page 21, where we advised to see the Dharma teacher as being a Buddha. Immediately turning to the text, so we in the published book, page 21, or in the e-book, we are in the middle of page 22. Starting, so just continuing with now a quotation from the Bodhisattva levels. Bodhisattva levels say that you should be free of arrogance, be free of contempt for the Dharma and those who expound the Dharma, and hold those two in high regard. That one should have a deep respect for both the Dharma and the teacher of the Dharma. This is something that we looked at last time. And so Lama Tsongkhapa is presenting it here, and he's presenting sources. So last time we saw, immediately preceding this, is a source from the sutra from Kishtagapa. And now we have a commentary from the Sangha. So both the sutra and the shastra is presenting this, or making this point, that one should listen with deep respect towards both the Dharma and the teacher of the Dharma. The quote from Sangha says that one should be free of arrogance. The problem with arrogance or pride is that it will lead to faults such as having no respect or a lack of respect for the teacher or the teachings. Rather, one should engage with the teacher and the teachings with a mind of trust or conviction, and as well as respect. And likewise, one should be free of contempt for the Dharma and the propounder of the Dharma. Lamrim chikpaki wo chungu da jing di lima song she gyore tanga zu di nyangwa se yomba tanga zu tyapa chimbe che nyamle jige sembe samda je aji chölia du sene kesu tongju da ya zanda de ne za a de chö de nge charmong bi da nyangwa ska yoma da cha cha di chönya ya ge tyo lama shin ya ska yoma sembe samjene samda de ne chölia kesu tongju zo cha ro gore zanda di je ne chölia kesu je ba cha gore je. One can imagine contempt for the Dharma being expressed in the following way. When one hears of a particular teaching being offered, or one knows in a series of teachings at what part of the text the teaching has come to, one may think, oh, I don't really need to hear that. I've heard this many times before. Or if one's in the teaching thinking a sense of disappointment coming to one's mind of, oh, I know this. I've really heard teachings on this many more times. For example, teachings in the context of the trainings shared with practitioners of initial or intermediate capacity. These I know. I've heard these many times. I really wish I wasn't here, or I don't need to go. So this is coming from a place of contempt, of looking down on the teacher, on the teaching, seeing that this is nothing new for me. I'm a bit beyond this. They're the more exalted teachings. These are the ones that I'm ready for.
Shubi Gabrina, then Shubinan, the thing is Shingu Gonzale, Mixiki, Sava Shingo, Shinya Sky, Sava Lavia Sky, or Mares and Big sometime. And that there's a dish I Shingu or Mare, Shingan gets some big Dushin, the Kisu, and Jela Gushem Mevada, Dushin, Energy, Tengaja, and the Gushem Mevada, Kisu, Yangachimura, Chesadiniza, Dushin, the Kisu, Gushem Meva, and the Chico. Denege and Tonjon Diada, Denisha, Lama Chenyabe, Gavla Lama Litinchina, and Jigoma Chigoma Esgurua.
And similarly, one can imagine disrespect being shown towards the teacher of the Dharma, with the thought coming, what can you possibly teach me? Especially on a topic like this, I know it so well. So in this way, we see that these two, disrespect for the Dharma, as well as the teacher of the Dharma, they may well be linked, or one may feel disrespect just for one. So here one may think, what can you teach me on this topic? You know no more than me. Or one may think, you've got nothing new to say for me on this topic. I've heard it all before. So here we can sense a sense of disrespect towards the teacher coming from a place of pride or even arrogance. So this, of course, is a great fault to guard oneself against.
So the Dibu point and Geodruye children and Gorba. Dibu point Geodruye Orba, Jechin Bicablia, and then Chelia, Cheshuetang, 안지 최 순간이야 안에 계셔다 통중 되네게 지는 년바다 소소 나야게 대당이 디디싱이 돼 디지데 응알샤라 미스게 라비아스카 마랑 디자네 신샤카 샤요 말씀 되네게 구셰 메비 토네다 두신스나 이제 도나티가 말바데 마지 구셰 메비 토네 안지 지시해 줘와 어디는 지에 디시자삼 디 디베 차르고와 지사디 최년비 지니 년비가 개와사게 sabla 디버사 거와 되네기 디버사베게 제보들라 마오바나 안지 제보 둥아요하지마도 네 타바다 탐지 김비고 와토야다 하나미 고와토야기 규샤야가 차고 말 되네자 되네 제베나 디버차고래 지상한 주기 셈규두에게 안주 최년바디 괴대니 보드랑게 셈규 dueres chena di semgyu madu ba che semle ya nyomo pa ngaja 안지시게 마구비 계속치를 내니 nyomo pa ki gor dis che gor dine tigo mare se sto na dirwa.
There are several ways one can understand the great faults of not approaching teachings and the teacher with a sense of openness and respect. One way that we can understand the fault of this is the purpose of listening to a Dharma teaching. The reason for coming to any Dharma teaching or opening a Dharma book is to hear in order to abandon non-virtue and accumulate virtue. That is the purpose. So if one is having a mind that is afflicted with arrogance or afflicted with contempt, one's mind is non-virtuous. And when one's mind now, what criticism is going around in one's mind, thinking that these teachings really, I'm beyond them, or this teacher, what can they say to that's new for me? All that's happening here is, on one hand, one's afflictions are growing, and on the other, the possibility to accumulate virtue and to purify non-virtue, this is being lost. So this is a clear reason for the fault of having a mind of contempt or arrogance towards the teacher and the teaching.
Lama
This paragraph ends with, and hold those two in high regard, and in high regard or with respect, and that of course refers to both the Dharma and the propounder of the Dharma, the teacher.
Lamrim jing around sort of a 7 ching on Zuki Lamrim Chivina, Chesa, Denegi Chene, Lamrim de na Chedile. That Denegi Nye, Rabadi Bemas, Gomburis, Zachimburis, Diri, Gohap Nye, Gobra Bemas, Yapure, Sambega, Semlia, Gawada, and Chedigi, Denegi. Lam Yamli Rimbangazo, Koyu Dunga, Tadala Jeje, Tarvada Tamje Kimiko to be Lam Yamlingi, Rimba di Sosole, di Chedi, Tingore, Chedinalo di Sungore, Chesna di Tenegi Tue Rabadi, Bemasi Yagushura, Denegi Tue de Kogakumu Shuri, Chesna di Tubala Tenanzugi, Yamlen Jamba di Rimba di Shingri, Deshin by Nanga Koyu Dunga, Tugres, and Bigi Gawi, Gawaki, Dini, and Chelia. A
more skillful way to approach teachings, such as these that we are this series of teachings on the Lamrim, is that one generates the mind recognizing how rare it is to be able to receive Dharma teachings. And even if it's a topic that one knows, one can recognize, I may have heard teachings on this topic many times before, but nevertheless, these opportunities in the world are incredibly rare. So how fortunate am I to be hearing this teaching again? This is truly fantastic. I've created these causes and now I have this opportunity to hear this teaching once again, and thereby to accumulate further virtue and purify non-virtue. Thinking like this, generates joy in one's mind, makes one's mind open and spacious, and thereby easily enables the arisal of respect for the teaching and the teacher.
dungal tuwe tablam na digi tuwe tablam de dingo re jisa ngana zu goya de digi tuwe de goya digi re mogoya de dunga kanga se re jisa dungal ye taraya ge tablam de dinen ma sungo re digi tuwe ge tablam de sungo re jisa dene ge sunya de che de nya ye ba pe ma se ge ta 고급 야보다 가와상고 쇼지 디링다 마냐라바 뱀버스 야보 총송 선배게 데네기 아니 첼레 대바나 랑기냐에 최需要야 고급 라와데라 가와지야다 안디나시 안체마오바 손체송아보들레 데네기다 안줄이야 람딘 데네 송어데 뱀마세기 데네기 쉬야라데 갈레카보레 데네자 디린 쉬야라데 뱀마스 고가 야보 쇼종소 데네기 데 쉐마송발레 데네 안주기 퇴제 퇴비게 된들이 앞 삼정아 주기 냠내진다는 거라지네 탈바든 동화세야다 안디기 주에 두투에 되는 시자 빼마스 야고래 선배기다 되네 가와다 도시의 삼다징아죠 가와게다 대바다 는 그십토는 양고래 세송고로다
The way to approach the opportunity to receive a teaching is to remind yourself, myself, like every other being, longs for happiness, a state completely freed of suffering. This teaching that I now have the opportunity to receive will present to me the methods for accumulating the causes for lasting happiness and the method for abandoning the causes that would otherwise lead to suffering. The teachings such as these are incredibly rare in our world. And for me, I've once again met the opportunity to receive them. How truly fortunate I am. I really can count myself amongst the truly fortunate in our world, because there are very few who have this opportunity even once, let alone, as in my case perhaps, many times. So thinking like this, the mind becomes light and joyful, and one immediately approaches the opportunity with enthusiasm and attention. This too will be accompanied by faith and respect. So here one is generating joy in one's mind at the opportunity, even if one has heard teachings on the topic before, to reinforce what one has heard before, and thereby strengthen one's conviction, strengthen one's application to the paths of virtue.
지양 지켜쳐져 세우하고 투야하게 먹는 근데 최라연도 당한 저게 대단 최세대다 지지 최라디 된다라다 최세대 만들이야 디기루야다 동아세야시레 세비기다 라바로 삼단에 최세대니 고고로와 되네게 탑라디야기 다사지 송될 최라고래 사시 나데네 마 집초야다 집초줄에 되네 최세디 안에가래 디나마 최세 숭디 숭에디 가르가르 숭고라데 디디 죄자나야 디지게 개와치마 하다미고 바도에 탑람 추리미 냠len다 아니 미다바다 레균데다 디니드 숭고레스 지시를 다의 죄자를 마선 최디게 죄자들에 야치하고다 양아직 바니에지 디네 삼다도 안 지게 다음에 바다 고르게 동화를 주었다 다음에 바다 두서 숭고르지 난 데레 바제스 동반이다네야 안지게 진소 발신 중에 냠는데 순고르세도 다 최세 지지는 디나르바 donda basam chikui goyon do ka ani yane yang do goyon do donda le ya chik sab ko chi go ya chi ro chue se ra kwa ro sam dan da chue se de ji dang an ji ge nam jin da ji donda ma san chue se de di go ji ge chik ka so re lama chi da san ye chi ma sun che gyo chi le chue la go se ra kwa ra wa di de shuo da an di le just how geshe de how go do chue se de 동아의 주위에 탑란 디기 주위에 탑람 미팅 거래서야지 어디는 마주 14살 때는 안지게 원요 고원 주위에 탑람 탑하고 주변 냠내 림바 되네 태화침면이 남녀 림바 안딜라디나 태화침면 안에라 다지기 사바 근데 지게 냠내리 바 먹고 소야 여러바 디나 디네자 최세의 직직이네 야네 야도 튀어베네 어제 람림이 냠내리 바디나 야네 야도 튀어베네 딜레네 고소슬이야 로레야 장도를 셔야다 누고로선 마서나 다지 게셔도 하고야기 용고로 와
For those who consistently approach teachings with an approach, as I've just mentioned, they will delight in each and every opportunity that they encounter to receive teachings. With a mind of joy, they'll push aside any barriers and will come to a teaching event with an enthusiasm and be able to engage in the teaching with attention, because they will have come over a period of time to understand the meaning of this word Dharma. So on a very rough level, if someone asks what does Dharma means, well, it's the teachings of the Buddha. And in the context of being in a teaching environment, it would be having the teachings of the Buddha explained to one. But on a slightly deeper level, this person would have understood that the Dharma is the presentation of the full and complete methods to attain a state of lasting happiness. And these methods need to be understood in their correct order and the mind trained in that sequence. And the deeper one understands a topic, the deeper the transformation will be. So when one starts to hear teachings, it will be quite confusing, quite overwhelming, many different topics. But as one starts to understand the flow better and how one impacts on the other, how the latter is built on the former, but the latter teachings also influence the former understanding, one will approach every topic with joy, knowing that whatever the topic is, one's deepening understanding of hearing these teachings again and again will impact all the topics that one has heard on before, not just the one is hearing now. So one will come to understand these varying teachings, whether it's on ethical restraint as being the primary cause to ensure good rebirth, definite emergence as being indispensable to developing the strength of mind to strive for liberation from suffering, and that the wisdom realizing selflessness or the wisdom realizing emptiness is required to attain that liberation. And to go further and attain enlightenment, one actually needs to practice the 6 perfections. So one will be coming to understand this entire map. And to the extent that one is understanding these teachings, and especially with the way of approaching the teachings as is being mentioned here, one will approach every teaching, no matter the topic, with the desire to understand that topic that little bit deeper, because one will have understood that every time one hears teachings, one's understanding deepens, and that impacts all the various topics, not just the one being explicitly taught.
Dina jinda kirable kyan sa sanyi kirab sanyi chumne ke kiwer kirab nala kar son yorosne rab do mawe ten la duk dewe pani number ke ngada tembe migi ta tsigi du tongwa shins.
Continuing in the text with a quotation from Garland of Birth Stories, sits on a seat that is very low, fully develop the glory of discipline, and look with eyes imbued with joy while drinking the nectar of the words.
So
these verses present, reinforce the meaning of what is already being expressed in this outline. So there's nothing particularly new here. The first line, sits on a seat that is very low. So here one sits on a seat that is lower than the person presenting the Dharma teaching.
On the Kisin and the Senior Donalma, 送有对那上阶段找啊大钱的身体体力啊下去，身体体力下去，那么的真的下去第三的真的学的送送，第那星期八的都那的说，但电拖下去了下，拖上来爬下呢，你样啊说是马上下的学的是的，那么的呀。
This is similar to what we see in the paragraph above. So I'll just read from the paragraph above. As this quote urges, you should view teachers of the Dharma as Buddhas. Often, so just remember last weekend I said the meaning is as Buddhas, not resembling. View teachers of the Dharma as Buddhas, offer them service and goods with things like line thrones. So here we see sit on a seat that is very low. So this is indirectly saying offer them a line throne to sit above or sit upon.
가르에서는 럽도디베 때라 두세 지사야 최슈 소소마데 라마데야 최슈 송사디만 강의 토하샤지도 라마리아 구샵 소소다 지과 마연바 랑리 연된 차와다 란지게 니지 윤비게다 될야 안추 송예기 최대 안상유 주민들에게 송지베 탈비게 람된베 냠내기 심바 송 최자 첨보디 드네 송게 드네 라마디 송교베자 라마델이야 안지게 고구샵다 템베토네 안도시네 쇼살마선 토알마샤제 다 소소다 잔념 지과지마제바제 온도시네 슈고레세제.
And the purpose of sitting on a seat that is very low, the purpose of sitting at a level lower than the propounder of the Dharma is to show respect, to explicitly or physically make the statement, we are not the same. You have greater qualities than I do, and this is in particular in terms of why we are here. You have greater qualities in this Dharma topic that you are presenting to me. These various stages of training that will lead to my liberation. You have greater qualities than I do, and therefore I'm showing respect to you. I do not see us as on the same level.
나도 저기 내 지속에 삼다면은 내 지게 차상 전념레마도 지게 요지게 통지 토로 딴 거야 다니까 미야말 와다 지고 저기 차상 토탄 전념 지속 전념 차대로 와 이내다 아주 내디디 수야디 가르스 워스다 아주 람냠링이 진바 냠링이 좀 셈 뒤위게 탑람 소속에 셈 뒤고라 소속에 셈 뒤 녀모버 초소 마동하지 셈 뒤고 엔자 안디 구샵다 템베 권에도 제과로와 진나는 아주 넘윤네 지게 소소 전냠레 지기연된 체나다 연대 중앙나다 토당 전에 미인바 지과엔자 직토하샤와다 마샤 지버 뒤에 전념 제조로와 삼단하 조로와 지디인디 삼단하딩 아주게 직 셈 뒤에 탑람 차고 말해 셈 전념 삼다도 소소라랑게 셈 녀모베 셈디 뒤에 가래 가보러와 전념 삼다도 파조디 뜻이 말을 람사딜야 렌잡루와다 전념이가 지과로 와디 교행하래 라와레슨 팔렌제다 파직 렌로야다 람사 직 규주제야 용식으로와 제가 디나 디 규주제다 파디 직 셈데니 그람사 콜라 기베나 소수기 녀모기 디바기 녀모기 거로와 제가 녀모베 매와서 두고 말 녀모기 기용 거로와 제가 안주기 최지위 냠는 삼다 냠는세야디 아주 녀모베직 직 지 삼로디 밤 게디나 마 매와서야게 탑람다야 지난 기회 삼로디 게디나야 개체를 뉴버체 다야게 삼 데니게 탑람기 삼로 땅고 와자 데니게 땅은자 땅은 저기 두체네야 최 순간이야 토라샤 델리아 구접제 두시도 안 델리아 갈리기 말해서는 구접제다 콜리아 통제제 콜리아 규제제다 그 지금 콜리아 안지기 잔심제다 나야게데 나주기레디 용고마 디가야게 된다라 안제 가소르 구바체 안야 통샤 안야 chen sunganila toasha sosoran den mawal tueshine dosi nyamure se de deni nyambaina sosolyo guishepta deva dan gubalya du delya an jensemda ngajada an chig gyunjuje ge samlodi phakagoro dikaya ge tondala sungoro wade
In society, we value equality of seeing all people as being generally on the same level. And there are many benefits for this approach in society. But in this context, we don't employ that approach. The reason for this should be understood well. The purpose of hearing teachings is to subdue one's mind, to pacify one's mind, or we have it in the second line, to discipline one's mind. So for that to happen in a teaching environment, it's important that one's mind is open and receptive. If one sees oneself genuinely as being equal to someone else, one will be quite unlikely or quite hesitant. One will be unlikely to think this person has something to teach me, because then in one regard, what they would be higher than you. Whereas on an equal level, we are all the same. Whereas here in our teaching environment, we are before the teacher, we are seated below the teacher, because we recognize that the teacher has, through the words of the Dharma, something to say that we have yet to fully cultivate within ourselves. So by seeing ourselves as not on the same level, as not being equal in this regard, this serves to help us in challenging our pride and our arrogance, and thereby making our mind open and receptive to what is being said. Because the goal for us in every circumstance we find ourselves in, not just in a teaching environment, but everywhere, is be mindful of our mental processes and subdue our mind. In other words, restrain our mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions in every environment. None more so than in a teaching environment, where we need to be open and receptive. We need to challenge our own deep ingrained afflictions. And for that to happen, we can't be sitting in a teaching environment with pride or arrogance. We need to have a humility so that we can be receptive to what is being said.
that dus jine sosuke lama di zane chue shu bigida sosuke lama di zane chue shu di kapla dan shu tangi rinpa di sungolwa di men bigida thone dan nga zinam yunne yang chik chue ge lobjong roje je chik lama di metin ba je lobjong je ge sosuke shin chik chik lobjong je ro chimbe na ne chuke nyamdo tanyam de chen pa anji gushep che was ka ma gushep da de ne ki de ba da gushep che ka ma ko chi pa troleng pa che de ma xian ne ne ba na ni ko lo jong che ge chi do chi ne che yo ro da chi da de so ya de ke sa sa ju ge lama di zen ne shu du ka bla lama de ya du che ho re se da ngo nyam le ne jar che ne so su ge Bendigo thone nyamne chetang jimba de sungorwa de di men bege da anjuge Lama maten ba che sosuge chege donda xinyaage hago yege donda lobjongro chege donda le dus chebe ne anjuge jigin jimi je da rangma ha de chi de toa sha jin shuwas ga yo ma de 다들 추니로와 추기 롭종 제 저와 롭종 제라 라마팅과 스려 마르와 진 최로고 추시는 것은 예지 롭종 제 저와 되는 제반은 고 슈트가라샤 대바지 구바지 와스카요 마르와제
If we're approaching a teaching with the understanding that I'm going to have presented to me the stages in which to train my mind in order to attain liberation, one needs a Lama, a spiritual teacher, to guide us through this. And in these instances, it's imperative to approach the teaching in this way, with a sense of openness and receptiveness, which is greatly aided by having faith or trust and respect, to ensure that pride and arrogance, which serve to close our mind, that these are averted during the teachings. In other circumstances, we may be receiving teachings but we do not approach Dharma teachings, but we do not approach with this attitude. And we're just approaching to hear information, to understand a little bit better. So there we are approaching with quite a different attitude. And therefore, one wouldn't necessarily follow with this approach.
Da duyi pani number kese. Da duyi pani number kese. Dua se sim dua se ore. Chesa da rangi deji kang li sunga ne chue dan chue shuwa pole deba dan guba dan to ne shu ore se dinan ji bar rangi sim dua sim shijin dua sim dua la du sim ma dua la na dua sha khonro nga ja nyomo ba jena sim ma dua wa. Chesa de sim dua la du nyomo ba je le pa jene chen le chik chue so lama le ya guisha guba deba da guba da denigi chike Japan duyi bai se de ba se punsun choba mangbu sia chiki chigurwa chesa sim duyi bai ni number ke se denigi ke no ko denigi samlo de ke chene shugore se sim duyi ge sim duyi number bai de ke ni nyam shugore se ro ta sim duyi number ke se de sim duyi bai ge number ke ta de ka de ki gore la de lama chue yuan de ya denigi deji sheba na jen denigi chue za chimbo lama dizen chue shua le be ma se kedin chimbo yi sa da lama be nga zu li ji ya wo le se de ba ya da denigi de gushep ka so gushep che denigi shua la de ko ha be ya wo le se be ge denigi so so sim du wi ge da namba punsun so ba da sim du ye namba de ba da gu ba da an jin de denigi je ba yin da punsun so ba denigi ge chen ni yan wo le se so
just before coming to what Genla said now, so before Genla was drawing the comparison between when one is receiving teachings from one's Lama or when one is approaching a teaching as just being a presentation on the Dharma. Then one would, if it's just approaching it as a presentation, here a gathering of knowledge, then one wouldn't necessarily approach with what the attitude that is being presented here. So that distinction was made. Now coming to the second line, fully develop the glory of discipline. So this word discipline, whenever it appears, you can understand it rather to mean either a tamed mind or a subdued mind. Or a disciplined mind, but it's not such a nice word. So fully develop the glory of a tamed mind. So this refers to when one is taming or subduing one's mind from the afflictions. So this one is the main objective, of course, of the Dharma, to subdue our mind, to restrain it from coming under the influence of the afflictions. So here, when in our context of the teachings, of receiving teachings, then one approaches the teaching, recognizing how truly fortunate one is to receive, to have this opportunity, and how kind it is of the Lama to have trained for so many years or lifetimes to the point where he is such an example of the teachings. And here, thereby, recognize his many good qualities and the recognition of how truly fortunate I am. And with such an attitude, one's mind is going to be subdued from coming under the influence of afflictions, in particular those that will serve to close our mind, such as arrogance and pride, as well as those of the class of aggression or aversion, which will serve to push us away from the teaching that is being delivered. So this then is the meaning of fully develop the glory of a subdued mind.
Onda gada dembi migi dasere jisa denigi chue de jige chue dang chue song pa lama de pa jewa le de pe ji gashin gubi ko ne na diring denigi chue song pa kan ju ya ji koyo donga tadal zhuwa ji lam dembo be lama de je so lama sin chue chue ya ko pe ya wo re sen be ne ga wa da ga da la ji ne sem ga yu to ne an du shi ne chue ya shue ko pe ya wo ra so de ko pe ya wo re sen be de ni ge ga wa de de me de lama je de pe ya wo re sen ga yu ne mi ge da se de ga wa de de me to ne an lama le ku je de me ko ne ba ji ge ne da ya re se de da je ya re de ne je wo re se 다디네게 미기 아주 제할에 파샤바는 진의 제와라자. 가다 댐비 미기 따시르 가와다 댐비기 믹스해디 셈 아주게 가와단 대바당 아니 지구비지 비올로디길야 믹스밍다 되네 따호 되네기 따위 돈에 라말야 루치네 따위 돈에 주슈고래야.
The third line, and look with eyes imbued with joy. So here the joy is in reference to the teacher and the teaching, in that, and joy, it refers to that, it's an illustration of the attitude with which one should be listening to teachings. So a joyous, enthusiastic mind. And eyes imbued with joy, so eyes refers to the mind. So a mind that is joyful and respectful towards the teacher and teaching. This then, as we're hearing, is the attitude with which to engage with teachings.
That's you do too much. Guiba Gaging, Geshe said. Jidan Tsigi do too much. Tsigi do said, Jidan Tsigi do and Tsigi Nyambo la Hora, Nyambo la Tsigi do that, Chick Chetu. Jidan Zugede, Nyambo said, He has been She Nyambo at Anna Hacha or She Nyambo Guana, Nanzukalare, Tico, the Nyambo do like the Nyambo do like Nyambo Damjo go the Hacha, Simia Kalala, Tigistigoro, Soastigoro, Jezai, she Nyambo Mena, Chico Sosus, Kalala, Kitu, the Nyambo Kawajigo Maraba, Jeza Nyambo to said it. That day, Anzugi, Sanyi, that did see you do the Sedu, Sik Nyambo said it, then Sanyi Sunship, Suntikisura, this to the Nyambo said it. Did Ma Sunegi, Sik Dige, Karasungoras in a Dunga said, and the Yujuege, Tablam Lam Yamne Rimbadima, on the Sungor, Tingorwa. Jedi Dine Sung did Sik Duzides, Sik Nyambores, Nyamborim became Jangarasana, did Sik du Tuado, so a Kala like, oh, they didn't Nakanga Kukuman say a Tablam Dingy Haudu, then at the Yujuegi, Akoyagi, Digi Tablam Dingy, Delet Haudu, this he did. Then bear who some big denegi, Sik to Turbala dene, Semlia, Gadiki Yobanza, and Sanyi Sundigi, Sik Duzi, or Sik Yambusat. Nyembasore, the Nyembasore, Sik Nyembasore. Yel Jamade, Jezan what I'm joy go the social sola, Denala, Skill, Geshe, Nyembudu Lagro, Dina Jisan, Sik Nyembo said, Nyembo said, Digi Dunda de la Dunga Jada, Dunga said, and Digi to be a Tablam Dinganzulia, Demba and Dinigi to Semlia Bear, guarded with Mother Shiuji, Galala, Gawakiada, the knitting at Jigulot, didn't get Dunga say a Tablam that Digi to Tabla House, Sampig, Gadishu Kit Hugo, and then Sik Nyamba, Siki Duzi said. Isn't that this one Siki Duzi, Tomashes?
The fourth line, while drinking the nectar of the words. So here the word nectar, we can understand to have the meaning of eloquence, so that one is hearing the teachings, hearing the words of the explanation, and taking joy, taking delight in the beauty of what is being expressed. And so here, this doesn't refer to the way we usually use the word eloquence, which is a skillful way to present something, but rather it comes about both independence on the joy, with one's eyes imbued with joy, as well as contributing towards joy arising in the mind, in that one is recognizing, one is hearing about aspects of the path that we are cultivating within us that will lead to our liberation from suffering, our freedom from the suffering realms of samsara. So when one skillfully approaches when one approaches a teaching in this manner, it's a skillful method to ensure that joy easily arises, that whatever the Dharma topic is, however it is being presented, one recognizes that through my skillful approach, I am hearing here the very nectar of the Dharma, in that I'm hearing how to attain liberation from my suffering. And thinking skillfully in this way, one interacts with the words as being eloquent because of the meaning of the Dharma, which is that we are learning how to attain liberation. So in this way, looking with eyes imbued with joy while drinking the nectar of the words, this is a skillful way to approach the Dharma, to ensure that our mind is joyful, open, and receptive.
That's it. Do you know what she said? And do you say that you know? Do you say that don't why not carry your lesson? Do you say that? Hey, do you say your rest? Did you see? Answer the don't have you chudi chudi. Don't have chudi. Answer the pendulum. What you go or chudi? Kalasya that in the Dima Hawardo and answer. Kaukumbana, Kaukumbe needy, chudunga and the chudipa, Jane, Kaukumbe dunga sigorwa. Or dination that he. Do you say the Chunang to Chu, lay do you say the do you the pa, Chingan Tumba that you Luki, Gomba, and Luki Shan, near that's a Mambochi Basigo research, Sungorwa, she's a Ganga Mambosi to go research. She's not due to Tunga Shins, Din Tunga Naja, Sigi Duzi, San Yi Sun She became the YouTube down Tunga say, Taplam Dinship, Sungidi, Sikti, Jing Yembo, Yawading Hansba, Jing Yemba Ina, and the Digi, Karajosan. Digi Sigi Duzi Digi, Mahan Tunga said Dipa, that it is Tunga and the Patunga member, Amchulu Goadis, or dance kind of Tunga that the Sigi to Tunga, San Yi Sumbe, Sigi Duzi to Tunga, Tunga Nashin, Yambaina, Dilla Dine, and Dunda Yamsuli How, Dunga Dunga near Dunga near Yomoba, Mangush said Korea Sachi.
If we're thinking of the material world, where one will hear the term nectar, would be in relation to the nectar of the gods. Well, for us as humans, the equivalent would be water. Gods perceive our water as nectar. And the way we can relate to water as being like nectar is that our physical health is really dependent on water. There are so many health benefits to consuming water. It's in fact indispensable for life and is indispensable for physical health. So in the same way that water is indispensable for physical health, for actual mental health, there the words of the Dharma are indispensable. So while drinking the nectar of the words, we should understand as well, hearing the eloquent words refers to recognizing that these words of beauty are words of beauty because they will lead us to developing within us lasting, stable happiness. They will ensure that we abandon our afflictions completely. And with such an approach, one will readily drink in as many of the words as possible, being open and receptive to what is being presented. And this way aids us taking the teachings as direct personal advice, every teaching taking it as direct personal advice.
The Guba Gijin, that's it to Rabdo Tangla, Jimmy, Navy Membigi, Tsingyan Xin, Rimdro Yete, Chuen Yuan Jigs, Jie Song Soos.
The second verse. So I'll just change the second line a little bit. Bring forth respect and concentration with a stainless and pure mind, as patients heed a doctor's words, respectfully listen to the Dharma.
Da Guba Gijin, Zichi, Du, Sedaja, the Ji Gondo Sheshaban Jibare, the Chelia, Debadan, Guba, Che Song Bolia, and Chilamalia, Debadan, Guba Zichi, Du, Jessin, Guba Gijin, Zichi, Du, Zichi, Du, said, Pa Zichi, Yango research, Zichi, Jessin, Yango research, Guba Gijin, Zichi, Rabdo Tawe, Jimei, said that Semlia Chike Rabdo Tawas and Gawa gayu gala la chine diring din ning yu ba be a go chung so che be ma se ge dangwa de ba dang ane gawa ge chine ne dima me ba jime yi si de jima me ba si de jima me ba si de ji ka che ba na je ji ge de le ya an chen sem da nga ya da an ji ge da tong chu da de ni ge ane ke su ji bi ge sam lo me ba chine nyang go re de su ne jima me ba jima de ge nyo mo ba ti si ro jima me ba yi si
Bring forth respect and concentration. So respect for the teacher and the Dharma, and concentration in terms of listening single-pointedly to the teachings without distraction. So here again, we're being encouraged to be respectful to both the Lama and the teachings, and to listen without distraction, and to listen with, the second line, with a stainless and pure mind. So here, stainless and pure, we can understand in this context as being a mind that is joyful. And a joyful mind is an energetic mind. And an energetic mind can be so much more easily concentrated. Moreover, stainless and pure would refer to being without manifest afflictions, and in particular in this context, afflictions such as pride, which will be experienced as competitiveness, where one thinks, I could explain it better than that, or criticism, thinking where one looks down on the teacher or the teaching, criticizing them. So stainless and pure mind refers to a mind that is virtuous, including joyful, and where afflictions aren't dominant.
Maybe yin shin si dang zu gi neba dina so su gi ne le zhe ko yin za ne gi dung ga gang se di ji men bi gi ma dine chi ke men de sa gol jin de che gol se men bi son she ba na xin ji ji nian jie an zu gi an ji gi ne je ba men ju che yo de ne de le zhu go lo was ji za dine za nga zu ne ba di yin ji mi ji men bi she ba na xin ji nian gu du was nian jie ne le zhu gu du di na xin 당한 저기 코유동아 타달의 저제 타바당 탐제 캠프 고방 띵기 디기 토바텔라양 아니 최당 최모보 송베게 지나신 지는 연구래서데 최냠는 제고래서 림조이게 최년식시데 지사 라마당 최당 라마리아 데바체당 데레 구십제야 아니 림조체서데 연구제당 안젤야 지금 림조체서 지 주알 제비슈야 레갈이야 저와 제비슈야 여러와 남을 받는 시야다 지치 제야지 먹고 여러자 림조 제바서 그러와 네비기 멘비기 셰바낭신 지는 냠는 제바는 맨디네 사디차시세 셰바이나 권내들 조구도와 네바디 멘비 셰바나진 칼은 연구도와 세제 제 델레 냠바이나 델레디네 네 조구도와 제 니나신 아조 코유 동아를 죄시 타르베 고방 토바 산제 고방 토바라 최 순간디기 송바나신 연구고레 최나의 셰바나신 연구고레 델레 이셰단 대바제고레 지난 디제네는 아주 냠베제고레 아니 델레 안에 최단 최송업을 림주제고레선 최고 부야다 지 십주시야라 소바 또 제고레서 그래 디니 제 냠바이나 내가 저게 가소레 디기투에게 탑let 냠는디 야부 연구레 냠내 야부 주나 한 소주규라 똑바규레기에나 안 코비 동아라 타야다 안 탈비고 봐 도투야 연구를 해서 디순 거래.
In the third line, there's patience, heed the doctor's words. So here, this is again how we should be approaching the teaching, the teaching experience. It's like someone who's recognized there's not something quite right. I'm a little off. I need to heal. And this skilled teacher, this skilled doctor, can give me the ideal advice. Because if one has the attitude that I am a patient and this is the doctor, just like when one does see a doctor, one listens carefully to what is said and thinks about what is being said. So too here, we should relate to each and every Dharma class as being direct and personal advice about my particular ailment, not thinking that, oh, this is interesting, but it's about that person or someone else, another situation, but rather recognize that every teaching is about our own afflictions and how to abandon them, as well as about the need to develop particular good qualities that we ourselves need to develop, either newly develop or develop further. And we should approach further with an attitude of trust, faith, and conviction, showing respect in the various ways mentioned in the verse above and the paragraph above that. And if we do so, our training will go well, because we'll be receptive to what is being presented, and we'll be taking that as personal advice and applying it immediately and from now to our mind. Then liberation, we can be sure, will approach, will near.
나도 나닝보 딜링한 주게 최년 비갑라 아니 지간 주게 예 최년의 최다 최소 본이 될래야 대화 제고 그래서 다정한 주 최소 보란 게 라마 당한 주 냠는 집이 갑라 소소게 라마 시대 라마 디자인이야 최슈비 갑라 아니 지게 라마라 마구바다 소소한 가게다 안지게 엔디니기 토네 최슈야요 말레스 주교 말레스 디슈베나 소소게 소소기 셈규 뒤투 말해서 오라 제가 저 최슈에 가서 셈규 뒤에 된다 송거와 지사 셈규 뒤 소소냐 나게다 나게게 바나 디뇨모 바라와 지사 셈규 뒤가 나게다 최라 계수제하다 라마라 계수제바나 디스 디바레 지사 디바침 보사고 지사 디 아저게 나솔게 동안여야 규칙으로마도 디기 두비하게 동안세에 차고 말 지사 최래야 계수제하다 최모보라 계수제하다 소소게 나게제하다 안지게 도시는 마구바제하다 디니체바이나 수수게 라마텐 최슈비 갑라 디니게 삼로 디니시 땅바 땅제 도시바이나 디수 나저 디바차고레스 지산 디수기 제부 동안용고 지상한저 동아 셈규 두고 말레스 삼로 디니 따교 말에 최슈비 갑라서 오다 제가 집에 게 림주게 최인의 시세산 받는 대신 대신 매매대 아 대신 시요 말해야 돼. 야야.
And then the fourth line, respectfully listening to the Dharma. So again, this is relating to our attitude towards both the Dharma and the Dharma teacher, that we should be listening to the presentation without any disrespect, without pride. Because if we have pride, if we do have a critical attitude, our mind will be closed to the Dharma. And if our mind is proud, how can we subdue it, as in the second line above, fully develop the glory of a tamed mind? How can we subdue or tame our mind if arrogance has arisen? And the word for pride is literally the king of the self, or I king. So a mind that is like a king is not a subdued mind. So therefore we need to be very attentive to our mind, ensuring that if we are open and receptive rather than closed and arrogant. Because if we are in a teaching environment and we are not open and receptive but are rather arrogant and critical, then instead of being in an opportunity which is absolutely ideal for accumulating virtue, we are actually accumulating non-virtue. And that is not the point of having come together.
Dine samdamina ane desi chepanda jen dikvati chakor simgi tutugo mareche. Andi mase dine ge da che ngakya da che mo pale ya kushep meba da kesu chebayna dine che de yana shugu marwa tsaraji jo da sayin rugu mesa shugu chogo mesa dine ge ngan zuge de yan chi ma shue ge ko pa che ge che shue ge Jimashuva, Pajang Chage, Yanga Yorba, Dinina, Jianchi Sosolia, Yonga Yorba, Dinigi Naja, Dam, and say Kusi, Shue down, Tongjo, Dini Samkoana, and Chu Shuegi, Duba Dunya Shaki Marwa, Shuegi Dunya Duba Magena, and the Jumara, Mashubana, and the Che Matu Baja, Matu Bigi Dundadi, Shing Marwa, Chesadi Gora Gores, Dine Samtang Gomares, let them zero she didn't do.
It's so important to guard our mind from these afflictions. Here, we're talking about pride, arrogance, competitiveness, and that of looking down or criticizing the teacher or the teachings. And the result of this, of having such an attitude, is that one's mind will be closed to the teacher and the teaching, which means that what is being said in one's presence is unlikely to penetrate one's heart, and therefore is not going to have an impact on one's way of thinking and one's behavior. Moreover, one's not going to have a joyful mind, meaning one is not enjoying what one is doing, and therefore, when obstacles arise, as they do, those obstacles will easily influence one to not come to further teachings. And in this way, despite one having created the causes to have the opportunity to encounter the teachings, one will not take that opportunity, and one's spiritual development will be greatly impeded.
Chel Martin Devasi de Yapure said, Ches Yapu Mikim Zagarasana, Delia Manzuki, Dunga Sosulia, Moe Dungare, Chisan Dungare, Goe Digire, Chisan Che Digi, Manzu Dunga Siada, Digi to be a tablam de Sungore, Dinanba, Chasa, Jimanova, the Marchua, Chasan Sonja, Be Yapura, Sempeke, Chelia Devagiada. The teacher saw Boladelia and the Niki Tablam Lam Yamli Rimbajing actually. Dingo, Belam, Bear, Warriors, and Bigia, the Devagia, and the Chilu, Dangagi, Tony, Gushepcha, and the Chik Dinigi, Sosokawa, Dinigi Chushia, Dinish Chica, Chu, Dinish Yamleja, Shia, the Bemba, Yapuri, Dinishia, Gumburi, Sempiki, Dinil, the Sosokawa Comia, Dinigi Lama. This and the Chishia Revata, Chitinishia, Kawakumia, Gawadin, and the Nigitonum, and Chigelamalia, Gelamadan, and the Chishia in the Chevine, Chelia, Chevopia, Lamalia, Chevopia, La Sobata, and the Jimdro, Gusheptia, the robot Chituava, Chikareshuia, the Dinishin, and Dushin, some Daje, and Chishuores, Dinishuina, and Sosolia. Devada, Gubada, and Jig, and Dawada, and Jikiva, the Chazan, the Gavachadur, never Gavarwa, the Samnokoran Gavare, and the Nigi Lama Lamada Chelia, Chevopuada, Nyangorgiada, the Nigi Jimrosia, the Shazan Gavachagore, Chazan Devada, Guba Gavana, the Enchi Dumbadi Shuksher to Gore, Dumbadi Shuksher, Dumbadi Kaze Shukshevena. The Chedi Yane Yadu Shua Yana Yadu Shuelia and the Pingoro Shitu Shugorwa. The Nishubana, Sosolia, and Chigi, D. Nesuti, Chigi Nesuda, Yamne Rimbadia, Comshilla Shukcher Shinja, Nis Chigi Nisu, Mama Hakodura. Hawana, the Nigin Hazuki, Yamne Rimbadi Quania, or the Pewagi, Kavaring or Essage, the Neza, Chiklamada Chele. Devada, Gubada, and the Chik Dushin and Cheva Puyutone, Shugores as Zero Dirwa.
So, how should we approach teachings? How should we listen to teachings? The text has really emphasized the need to have faith in the teacher and the teachings. And this would be a mind of faith we can liken or would have the aspect of a mind of joy. So, why has joy been emphasized so many times here? Well, firstly, to generate joy, we should recognize the importance of the teaching one will receive. Again, whatever the topic may be. Bearing in mind that everything the Buddha taught was taught so as to aid beings to abandon afflictions and attain lasting happiness of liberation. So therefore, whatever the teaching topic is, that is the purpose it serves. So therefore, one recognizes that by receiving this teaching that I am about to receive or am receiving, through listening in the way that has been described with an open heart, taking the teachings as personal advice, I am gathering a skill in developing my ability to overcome my afflictions and thereby reduce my suffering. Moreover, I'm developing my ability to strengthen my virtuous minds and therefore cultivate ever greater happiness. And this is what motivates us to come to teachings, wanting happiness, wanting to be freed from suffering. So thereby, hearing these teachings, this aids my spiritual development. Moreover, through this, aids my impact I have on others too. I'm incredibly fortunate to have this opportunity. These opportunities in our world are so rare. There's so few beings who right now have this opportunity, who this week have this opportunity, who this month have this opportunity. I truly am fortunate. Thinking like this brings joy to our mind. So here we've generated joy with regard to the teaching. Then we can easily apply now this light and spacious, joyful mind to the teacher, recalling his many good qualities. And that then immediately leads to respect arising with respect and faith arising within us towards the teacher. When one approaches the teachings with such an attitude, it will transform, for example, the various formalities that we engage in, such as recitation of prayers, offering of prostrations, perhaps making other offerings. These will all be done in a sincere and heartfelt manner, leading to so much more merit being accumulated. So in this point on how to listen to teachings, this mind of joy has been emphasized. So and the reason for that is there is a stream of dependency, that independence on joy arising towards the teacher and the teaching, aspiration arises to attend and the teaching, to engage, to listen to the teaching attentively, receiving it as personal advice, and from joy, aspiration arises. From aspiration comes ever more engagement, both engagement in hearing as well as applying those teachings. So therefore we have the stream of interdependence from joy to aspiration to engagement, and these all lead to an ever more rapid transformation of our way of thinking, and thereby we experience our spiritual development in terms of ever more virtuous, happier minds, and ever less afflicted minds.
Dene zadang jugi dene ke nyamlen chibe kapla rangi lama de da sangye kungwe ba dushe sha chene ando chene samda chene sangye kungwe re sambe ke samda che on ju dushine chushu gore se ga san di son ju ruang zhe dene yang jing na samna la ka yu musene that jige sangye mai na sangye re sambe samda ne di samno di lo she lo cha ru gu wa ji za di jige kyun ru shi ma do da da ma wa sambe ke da la ma cha san sangye imbe nge ba yo ma re sangye mai ba ya yung ru wa sambe ke dene ga samna la yung ru wa.
We have some minutes left, so let's say a little bit more on something we touched on last week, which we saw here at the bottom of the one quotation, seeing one's teacher as a Buddha, so just changing the translation, seeing the teacher as a Buddha, or on the top of this page, seeing, as the quote urges, you should view teachers of the Dharma as Buddhas. So one may well have the doubt with this, thinking that, but seeing one's teacher as a Buddha, is this in accordance with reality or not? Is it seeing one's teacher as a Buddha, if it's not in accordance with reality, we're being encouraged to develop a wrong consciousness. Surely not all teachers can be Buddhas. So therefore, if we are being encouraged to see someone as a Buddha who is not, we're being encouraged to think in a way that is not in accordance with reality and is a wrong consciousness.
And then Lama Geshe Thubten Rabten she bene di Sangye marwa. That rangi Lama Geshe Thubten Rabten bene di Sangye re sembe sam Sangye ngwe re sembe samda je anjige chushu bene di ko ngwe re samyas ke Sangye marwa sembe ge da jingwe re samda jigminu sembe semle ya de ngurwa de ne.
So let's say one's teacher was an Arya Bodhisattva, but here one's being, in actuality is an Arya Bodhisattva, but one here is being encouraged to see them as Buddha. So this is not in accordance with reality. So is it a fault?
Chita nga jugi lama de sangye yinda ma yin nga jugi she de ha chi kala hawurwa jinga jugi sangye yinda yo de ngoma la sangye yinda namba jenju simbe chui tian ba da ne tame be ki jigi nga ju na shin ji chui tian ba mang bu yong go wa jesa da jugi lama de sangye yinda ma yin se de nga jugi cheme nge ba nye de kala hawurwa zada de do da lung da de ne ma song ja ba de le ya yi che be to ne lama de sa yu kong re sembe ge da du she sam du she sha du she ne je ba ina so so ya gyon ha ska ma ti ga ne so so ya sang ji kong re sembe ge du she sha ne sang ji ge de ba sang ji le de chi ge sang ji kong re sembe du she sha je de la che we sang ji le de ba chi be sang de ba cha chu go ba che sang ji le de ba chi be de ba de that Manzuki Kewa, Jikewa, Palumeva, Kewa Chimbochegorua. Dineza, Denigi, Deva Chevaina, Sozuki, Yamlingi Rimba, more compared to Pierre Mado, the Sanji Maimba Chila Sanji, Sanji Kungu, Sanji Hanajo, Sanji, mean Semengaba, Manibana, Sanji, Sembiki, that Ichiro, than Deva Chevaina, Dushe Chavaina, Delia, Manzuki, Chichedang, Lamalia. Dumba dan deba diba shu shar joya mado ne gewa shu shar joya mado chun joya me bare jisan dini inza dushe cha gore se ore kesi dushe ma cha ba je smje na lama da smje da nganzo da jibare sembe samta be na samno dini shike be na andelia sangye spe dushe be tele deba me za sangye la debe deba cheli mare gewa sa to ya mere andi nganzo jibare sembe samta be na gyumare samta be na dela deba le khagorwa dine gyumare sna da gyumare sa de ko shige de ta da gyumare no jo yongure sembe ge da de no jo yongure sembe da to ba thesum le ngorwa dine she de la da de koran she sha ma do de ta ta gyumare sembe thesum le ya de andi 그 소예게 된다게 냠ben지 림바데 따다 제투 말아봐 제마도 반자 아니 데네 마도도 아니 가슴 질이야 안 지기 냠바자 마도 디마 지 베주체 마도나 아니 가서 셈유 뒤제 냠레 림바데 도바 공부데 차투고 말아봐 매반자 엔데네 삼다교 말레스 제자다 라마데 산유 공고도 샤고레 소유도 공고도 샤샤야도 데라 데바다 이시 뭐 공부도 쳐봐다 안 데리게 균 마통 라면 균 마통아 는 라면 균 하나 균로 통서 남산들이야 아주 균제 삼다에도 은지 냐바 침보 사용 거다 라면 균 마통아 라면 연단 통화하게 개발해 봐자 아직 되네 진짜 어디 숨거와 김자로지
The truth is, it's very difficult for us to say with a valid cognizer whether someone is a Buddha or not. But the sutras and the shastras, the many great commentaries, they all encourage students to relate to their teacher as being a Buddha. And that to do so, there is no fault to do so, whether they are a Buddha or not. If they are a Buddha, of course, one is then relating to them as they are. And if they are not, there is no fault, because due to having faith that he is, stable faith, trust or conviction that he is a Buddha, so much merit is created. And this creation of merit, of course, aids one's spiritual development. And the way that we can really understand how seeing one's teacher as a Buddha aids one's spiritual development is that one's aspiration to hear teachings, and and whilst hearing them, to take them as direct advice said directly to you, and put them immediately and continuously into practice. This aspiration will be very strong and will be stable. And in this way, one will rapidly spiritually develop. To express it differently, if one sees one's teacher as a Buddha, one will be open and receptive, knowing that one is receiving faultless advice. And not only is advice faultless, but it is perfect for you. And this will mean one will truly be relating to as a patient who knows they are desperately ill, and such a patient who is desperate for the prescription of medical treatment that they are receiving. Such a patient will heal much more quickly. On the other hand, if one sees the teacher as maybe a bit special, maybe not, that immediately opens one's mind to doubt. Doubt, and the fault of doubt is that one is now not so receptive to what is being said, and one is looking for faults, or will grasp onto and hold any faults that one sees in the teacher or in the presentation, and so forth. And this serves to close one's mind. And then one is just engaging in an intellectual exercise of hearing information. One is not being receptive to spiritual guidance. And therefore, one's development will be very limited. One's spiritual development will be very limited. And then thirdly, if one sees the teacher as being lower than oneself, as really not having much in the way of qualities, then one certainly wish there'd be no point in coming to the teachings at all. So the fault that follows from not seeing the teacher as a Buddha, is that one will is then going to relate to the teacher as, yeah, he has qualities, but, and that opens us to hold on to faults that we perceive, which serves to close us to what is being said, as well as then when others are seeing apparent and abundant qualities, we will be blind to them. And thereby, the most important aspect, the words of the teaching, will not touch us and will not inspire us. Whereas on the other hand, if we do relate to our teacher as a Buddha, we will be open and receptive to his guidance, and we will rapidly spiritually develop.
Chu Suning has the Lama Lia Deba, Lamis, Lame Chushu, Sanyi, Jingil, Lamigim, Pa, and Jigim, and Gushin, Manzulia, Jike, Jinlap, Jugores, and Dushine, Jugores, Dinichi, Deva Chakobedi, Gimzerochi dinner.
And an additional way to see the benefits of relating to one's teacher as the Buddha is we do not have the merit to be in the physical presence of Buddha Shakyamuni. But if we relate to our teacher as being a Buddha, he will be in the direct lineage of the Buddhas, including Buddha Shakyamuni, which means we will receive the blessings of all the Buddhas, including Buddha Shakyamuni, through our Lama. And this comes through relating to our teacher as a Buddha.
Jike Song Pui Chin Ramneche, then Ma San Yu Kungwe Yin Simpegita, Delia San Yu Kungwe Shudio Bachi Mabachin Mazuki, Jamba Guchi, then Delia Sangi, Shell Devachi, Jenny Chichi, the Ransom, Sangila Devachi, Sagumado, Sagor, Wada, the Kura, the Dejan Sangi Mares, Reda Mares, and the Sangi, when it's in that was Sangi Marilla, Chagru, Marua, and Zuki 직수에네 두수교 옥세와 지난 되네 송푸이 다 되네 그 ram네 제 상业될야 예시바 젠장 제 예시바 슈여스 슈바 제 ram네 제 되네 제반자다 만도 상유 공고에 대슈려 상유 공고에 인생베게 매바 제제 그 제뒤 알아서 상계를 대바제베게 타야사고로와.
And as part of this, those who make great effort with the statues that we have here and others to fill them in the appropriate manner, putting all the right substances in the right place and making quite some effort in that regard, and then have them consecrated. The whole purpose behind doing all of that is so that thereafter we can have confidence that through having followed this ritual that was prescribed by the Buddha himself, we have kind of confidence that the Buddhas abide in this image, and thereby do not relate to the statues in your shrine at home or the shrine here as mere metal carvings, but rather as actual Buddhas, because they've been consecrated in the way that the Buddhas prescribed. So this then serves the purpose of that when we make offerings, when we make supplications to these beings, we relate to them as being physical representatives of the Buddhas, not merely as carvings. In this way then, because of the different mental attitude, we create so much more merit.
Right. Okay.
I just had one question about I can understand why we do 7 weeks of prayers for a being who's bound to psychic existence. Is there any significance when we do that for, a teacher who's very accomplished?
Usually we do prayers for when someone has died every 7 days, cultivating on after 7 weeks on the 49 days. And so I understand the reason why we do that. But we also do this for when a great master, an accomplished being, a realized being passes. So what is the thinking behind doing it for a realized person as opposed to an ordinary person?
I'm not asking that we're purifying our connection to that teacher. I'm not asking that. I'm just, what's the significance? Is there any significance of the 7 weeks, or is that just convention?
Mixes camera, the Chida, that the Dunzi Chitan de la Dos Mirar, Chida Mikuma, the Lama Consogi, Dunzi Chitan de Gomare, the Dunzi were the Chidan and the Dunzi, the Carasana, Barto de Liam, Nimi Duni, Dunji Parala, Kiwa Chilemadona, Yanga, she, Yanga Bardal, Kiwo, Resure. Chizada, Nima Dunji, Namun Kima in Mikuma in Machine, Shago Drug Nimutilla, Chapter Chiwore. Carson Pardo, the Sun, he gave a lingua, Chisako Kiwa, Yapuch Len 2 years, Dondaliama to Chapter Chiwore, Namunti 20 Then Shah Shipchu Shirgo said, Saradu, Matale Shipshola Kiwa Lemato Chiel Hagoma, Chipshows in Jimikiwa Lingore. The Dinimodelia, Danzuki Kiwa Len Tare, said, Tako Kiwa Yapuchi Lembare, Sepike, Chikwansuke, that. Gaso Shashipshia said, Len Savada Dima, Tike, Dinigi Dasan Chene, on the Chapter Chagore. 다 샵시고 시시고 니모델 지도 상이들 다 개와는 개와야 보시네야지다 됐다 되는 마사 타마로 있지요 되지 그 약보를 렌차비 나중에 대베베 루세는 꾸로셔야다 꾸로지 이제 꾸당으로 써야다 되는게 그 수고래 집시오님들 잠제 그런래 시비님들이 지지가요래 지팅거래 베베지나 지팅제 지디베나 콘지나라 가르서는 꾸디네 샤베나 그 개와디네 실링그레스 꾸디네 마샤베나 그 개와디네 실링그레스 하지 그 지나는식 된거래 제선도 그 제네스 꾸샤베나 개와치마 미 개와야 보실리 두그레스 하지 언데네도 꾸제네 꾸샤제 샤십시고 님들 꾸디 파수 참 데네 샵던제야 되지 지고래 세네 데디 미가서 지당을 줘다들이 다 라미게 제디 님 듄 따따들이야 라마디 다 님의 듄도 공부서도 다디 꿀리디 파 직파 닝바 파 예신양 지금 최유구이 남바 사바르 게니 되니시다 되네 양한 저기 선음 사회 제도게 다디니 라미게 디링이 아직 규미구이 아직 사바 셰바레세베 되니게 아니지 선음 사회 제도 샤변 제거래 다시 십주 되네 두두들이 지에 되는 저기 미규묘 조사다 남주지 직과 조지 디당 투바진 제샤로 와 미지마도 믹스가요 말해.
So first to answer it more broadly and then come to end with specifically to your question. So usually for ordinary people, when ordinary people have passed, then one will engage in prayers, and if one does so every day, that is really good. But one is encouraged to do so every week, in that when the being is in the bardo, it's said that after 6 days, on the 7th, they will die and be reborn. So here one is doing prayers so as to offer merit to them or dedicate merit to them so that they can take a good rebirth. And in case they aren't reborn then in a new realm but remain in the bardo but now in a new body, then one would, a week later, would engage in further prayers. And one would do so up to 7 times, so that's the 49 days, because within that 49-day period, this ordinary being would definitely have taken rebirth in one of the realms. And so that one's purpose would have been fulfilled, which was of offering merit so as to aid their good rebirth. So that's the case for ordinary beings. And then also one could do additional things to prayers. One would consult an astrologer and get advice on what virtuous activities to engage in, and they would often recommend, for example, commissioning a tanka to be painted or a statue to be created, and one would then commission a tanka, perhaps a chenrezig or a statue, in accordance with the astrologer's advice, so as to create merit to enable a good rebirth for the deceased. So that's how it works for ordinary people. But then when it comes to great lamas, one would follow the same custom, but it would not for the same reason, in that they are in control of their own rebirth. But one still follows the same custom of doing, if one can do daily pujas or prayers, this would be ideal, but otherwise weekly or certainly after the 7-week period on the 49-day period. But one here is just following the custom as one would do for in the case of ordinary beings.
Okay.
Thank you.